So this is our new reality. Hi, Bob Morrow from emailhomes.ca. I want to say first of all that this is my opinion. What I'm saying in the next few minutes doesn't necessarily affect my partners or anybody associated with. I've left this for a while because I want to make sure that I give you the facts and not just another opinion, video. I'm sure you're all inundated with that and getting kind of sick of it. So this one is specifically facts for investors, those people that I work with primarily. So here's where we're at. Real estate services was considered an essential service. Why did they do that? The president of BRRR is the Ontario Real Estate Association. John Morrison's a friend of mine. And what he said is that when they were talking with the minister, they knew that there were a lot of homes that were going to close over the next few months. And if they didn't close, if we weren't an essential service, then a lot of buyers and sellers would be stuck. And the domino effect would have just destroyed the economy on its own, just real estate alone. So they're allowing us to close those properties as best we can, which means all the lawyers and the registry office, most important, stays open so that everybody, all the money gets handed over and these things close. What it doesn't mean is that business is as usual. And Sean has been very strict in, telling us what the rules and regulations are for real estate now. Some people are going to fight it. This is how we make a living, so a lot of agents are going to try and get around it, do virtual tours and this, that, and the other, and a lot of listings are still going up. But what I'm finding is that for our purposes as investors, those properties are disappearing, mostly because sellers are taking them off the market. Now is not the time to try and sell a house. A lot of sellers are declining showings, meaning we have to come up with creative ways to go and look at the house or do it by virtual tours, WhatsApp, whatever. And I don't think that's ideal. However, I will do it. And the video below kind of explains what I'm willing to do if investors still want to do this. Residential construction is considered an essential service. I think that may change. That's just my opinion. I think commercial construction is going to end pretty soon. It's not safe, and residential will slowly, scale back. What they're really looking for, the government, what they're really looking for is low-income and subsidized housing. They want that to continue, and let's face it, folks, that's not what we're doing. We create duplexes, and they're not low-income and they're not subsidized. So I think it may end at some point. Right now, our contractors, I spoke with all of them, all the ones we deal with. They are still working, mainly to finish the projects that were in the process at the time. What they're finding, the biggest problem is not necessarily safety or whether they are an essential service, but they can't get materials. Home Depot, places like that are running out of materials. And their staff, of course, a lot of them are just not showing up. I mean, we're not talking about high top labor here. So a lot of the people just aren't showing up. And when they do, the contractors are sending them in one at a time. So somebody goes in and does one job, comes out, next person goes in. As you can appreciate, that extends the project considerably. The other thing that we're finding in Brantford is we did a measurement on a property mid last week. We sent the one person in to do the measurements. He can't apply for permits now in Brantford except for 1 day a week. So once he gets his drawings done, he can apply on that 1 day, but you can imagine the backlog, and nobody wants to go down in a big lineup to get permits. Brantford doesn't have an online way of doing this. You have to do it in person. Tenanting has become an issue, of course. We all have heard what Ford's doing and saying, and rightfully or wrongfully, it puts tenanting for us, in a pretty rough state. He's telling people they don't have to pay rent. So for those of you who already have properties, you really need to look into that and research it. And I don't need to tell you how to get it. You can just Google it and you'll find different ways. Martin and Chris also have some information on that you might want to look into. But what I am saying for new people is, why would we want to get into this right now when we have, tenanting these things are going to be almost impossible. Nobody's going to rent a property sight unseen and not pay the prices we're asking for. So where does that leave us now? Sorry for the notes, but I want to make sure I get everything in. We have to decide if we're serious about this or not. We're investors. This isn't, for most of you, the way you make a living. I know that might be changing a little bit, but we really don't have to be doing this. So what's the rush? There are all kinds of hurdles for us to buy properties right now and get them renovated. So why are we doing it? Why don't we just wait? For those of you who disagree with me, I am an agent, so I'm going to get you in a house if you really want to see it. And the video below will show you what I'm willing to do to make that happen. And for those of you who want to, feel free to contact me. I think most of you probably won't, and you'll be willing to stay and wait to see what happens. So what is going to happen? Well, some people have said, I want to do it now because I think there's some bargains out there. Well, I'm online every day and I don't see it. There are no bargains out there. Prices are exactly the same as they were before. People still want the same, need the same. In fact, they're probably in more dire straits now than they were before, so they definitely want the money. For those who limit showings, sellers, we're finding that they just don't want us to come in. They want us to do other ways of doing things. And as I mentioned before, some agents are doing virtual tours and WhatsApp tours, and it just doesn't seem to be working that well. Homes are still selling, but far and few between, and a lot of those agents are taking some heavy risks for themselves and for their clients. The other comment I had is that, money's cheaper now, so it's easier to get a mortgage. Well, if you've tried to get your mortgage deferred or to try and get it changed, it's not as simple as people think. And besides, there are laws against rental homes being deferred, so you may not be able to get that anyway. Again, look at other resources for the answers on that. I'm not the expert. What I do think is going to happen in the future is that when this is over, there are going to be a lot of people that are desperate. Real desperation. They've lost their jobs, they don't have the money, they have to get out of that house. And although it might be seen that we're taking advantage of it, many of the people that I've talked to that seem to be heading that way are saying, look, your investors might be a godsend to me. When I need to do this, I need to know that I can do it quickly and I've got a reputable person doing it. So if a property comes up and that person has to sell and one of our investors is interested, we could make it happen fast. So I think there might be a lot of opportunities. As for a bargain sale, I don't know. It depends how desperate they are. And that's when we are definitely taking advantage of somebody. I think we're better off just saying the opportunities, the inventory is going to get sky high when some of these people do have trouble making payments. The best thing to do right now really is to just stay in touch. Watch the videos. A lot of you are getting the automatic listings, and you'll see that they're far and few between, especially in Brantford. The same ones keep cropping up and they're no good. Once I'm out of quarantine, I will be going out to look at some of the homes, but I'm going to be primarily looking at vacant homes. And if they're not vacant, then I'm going to be very specific about when and how I go in and do it. Probably have my hands in my pocket and just take videos for people to see. What's in the future for investors? Well, I just touched on that now. And I think, I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know. But I think interest rates are going to rise after this, so if you have the opportunity to change your personal mortgage now, go ahead and do it. One of my contractors who has several properties said that he was able to refinance all of his properties at a much lower rate and actually get them deferred. I'm not sure how he did that, but I trust him and believe him, and so obviously it's done. It can be done if you try hard enough. He did say he waited on the phone for 2.5 hours to talk to somebody, but then once he got them, they were more than willing to help him. As I mentioned before, there's going to be a lot of inventory coming up. I think people are going to be in trouble, and we're going to see that rise quickly. And we're going to have better opportunities than we do now. Better opportunities and probably a better way of going a step forward. We might be able to go into those homes. The risk for the virus may be much lower at that point. Lastly, I want to talk about off-market homes. I did my first one actually last month, and it wasn't a totally great experience. And I think the best thing I can tell investors from this is I'm not sure they're that great a bargain. These people are going in and getting, buying a home at a lower rate, supposedly, and then selling it to us so that they can make some money in between, assigning the property to us. The trouble is the price they want at the end is pretty much market price anyway. And it's very difficult to work with these folks in that they've already had their visits. The sellers don't really want a bunch of other people coming through. It's very difficult for us to go through our process of, having contractors in to get quotes, doing the measurements, and going for a visit to get that again when we get it permitted. We're almost being forced in these off-market products to wait until we close, which is not the way we like to do things. We like to try and get permits ahead of closing. But anyway, I'm going to do next month I'm going to do a different video on off-market properties. So at this point in time, that's all I really wanted to say. Reach out to me if you want. I am going to be sending properties that I think are good. That doesn't necessarily mean I want everybody to jump on it. Quite frankly, I don't. But if you do want to go see them, and then watch the other video, and you'll see how I'm prepared to do that for you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay informed.